Welcome to this guided series for new players to Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. Now, what I'm going to do in this part is talk about the role of what I'm referring to the construction industries, and more importantly, their relationship of how they fit into the overall economy. Now, before I get started, I just want to mention that this is what one of my university lecturers used to refer to as a chalk and talk lecture. That means that there is no actual detailed descriptions of laying out construction industries in this video, with one notable exception, which I'll talk about at the end of the video. So apologies for that if you want it, but I tried to record this as one video and it just became a massive muddle. So what I'm doing in this video, hopefully it's going to be quite short, is just talk about, as the subtitle of the video is, the why you build construction industries and where you build construction industries. And for that reason, this video is going to consist of 4 parts. First part is a very brief introduction where I'm going to define what I mean by construction industries. The second part, we're going to talk about why you build construction industries, which is, and it's probably self-evident really, it's you need to go for self-sufficiency. And then the next part, we're going to talk about where you build construction industries. Part of that I'm going to talk about a couple of sub-industries which you do need to be aware of. And then in the final section, I'm going to talk about the special case. So what do I mean by construction industries? And probably the best way to describe it is just to click on a construction office. And if you come to this tab here, what you'll see listed here is all the resources that you need to build things in the game. And now this list is also reflected in the other construction offices that are available. You've got a helicopter construction office. This has the same resource demands as a normal construction office. The rail construction office, if I come here, has a subset in the sense that it needs gravel, steel, prefabs, bricks, boards, electro components. Now, to build basic concrete track, all you need is gravel, steel, and prefabs. The bricks and boards are used when you construct bridges and tunnels, and of course the electro components are needed if you're going to be going to electrify your lines. So this is what I'm actually mean by construction industries. But of course, if you look down here, you'll see a number of different ones come in here. Now, so what I'm going to do now is just go down and point out a couple which aren't strictly construction industries. And of course, the obvious one here is steel. What drives where you'd place steel is very much the manufacturing requirement. So from the perspective of construction, steel is more of a logistics problem than a production problem. It'd be incredibly rare to build a steel mill just to drive the construction industry. Now, also moving down to mechanical components and electro components, these are very much the same. Mechanical components, electro components are also used in other manufacturing bases. So that creates 2 separate subsets of these construction industries. And while I will talk about steel and mechanical components and electrical components in more detail in the where, I'm not going to refer to them specifically from the point of view of the why and where you actually would want to build a specialized area. I think that is probably covered enough of the introduction. So let's get down to the why. Now the why is probably pretty obvious really. The key factor is that especially if you're playing on the higher levels, you're going to be constructing everything. Becoming completely self-sufficient in your construction industries is pretty important role to take on, because it will cost you a lot of money. And as an example of that, I'm just going to look at gravel. Now, if you look at gravel here, as I've already pointed out, you use really large amounts of gravel. And if you come in here, this is an easy trap to fall into. If you look at the current prices for gravel, you'll see that you can import gravel at 8.06 rubles per ton. This is a trap that many new players fall into. They think, well, all I've got to do is build a rail line to the border and import the gravel. The problem is that as your economy grows momentum, and the sheer amounts of gravel that you will be bringing in will eventually start to mount up, especially along with the accompanying logistics costs. It's also worth noting that gravel underpins your other resources that you need to make to support your construction industry. So gravel is tied in very much from that point of view. And it's also worth noting that don't even try to make money exporting gravel. It can be done if you are able to build a gravel plant right next to a customs shed. But to be honest, I would not use that as a decision to kind of place a construction production area. So this is the reason for the why. Now, another reason for the why is the fact that your asphalt and concrete have a very special case in the fact that you cannot transport asphalt and store it across the map. When a construction office has to go to an asphalt and concrete plant to collect the resources as part of a building project, basically it is a supply and demand system. If I open up the map, and if you imagine that we're kind of 40, 50 years in, if you are building in the center of the map, it's no longer viable to bring asphalt and concrete to the center of the map. Although there is one way that you can do it, but I'll leave that to the next video when I'm actually talking about laying out construction offices, because it's easier to kind of see it rather than actually me just talking about it. And the final part of this why section is the fact, as I've already mentioned, that you're going to need to produce steel, mechanical components and electronics to be able to drive your economy. So you might as well just take advantage of that to use as part of your construction process. Now, the other thing I want to mention in this section is, you can see at the moment I haven't allocated prefabs. The reason for that is that we're not really building anything with prefabs at the moment. If I come into here and we look at the buildings, you see these all use bricks, but all these are greyed out. And therefore prefabs are locked behind research, which is the same way as electro components and mechanical components. With prefabs, even the production is locked behind a tech wall, which if we come to construction here, you'll see of all the construction buildings, prefab panel factory needs research to be able to unlock it, to actually put it all together. The why is very much a drive to self-sufficiency on your overall economy, because again, it just to reaffirm that. I come into imports, a Soviet bloc, we're on the 29th of May. And if I just pause this very briefly, you'll see that the resources that are being drawn in fact, there's probably not that much there. This is probably a better example. And you can see the big one is steel, followed by bricks. You do use fairly large amounts of bricks. And then, of course, what we got is asphalt and concrete, because, of course, we have to import the asphalt. And you can see asphalt in itself is pretty expensive in its own right, and concrete. And then you can see the gravel there. At the moment, the price is cheap. And, of course, above, finally, we got boards. So one way to make your economy profitable and self-sufficient is to produce your own construction materials. Although one tip I will give you is don't ever try to go for 100% self-sufficiency, because there will be cases where you may say it'd be easier just to import the resources from a customs post if it's nearby. So that is very much the reason why you want to build your own construction industries. What I'm going to do now is just move on to the next section, where we're going to talk about where do you build these industries. So I'm going to start by kind of eradicating some of the obvious ones, which I've already previously mentioned. Steel, mechanical components, electrical components, where they are built are going to be dependent on access to resources, and more importantly, what your manufacturing demands is. Therefore, these are more, from a construction point of view, a matter of logistics. And I will talk about the logistics in the next part. Now, so that just leaves all the rest down here. So what that does is just leave all the other resources. And probably the best way to gauge how those resources are constructed is to click on the construction industry, which is used. And what you see here is listed the industries you need to be able to produce your construction resources. Now, of course, the first three I've already pointed out: construction offices. Demolition is an interesting mechanic, but it's really for when you're playing very advanced realistic mode. What demolition means is that if you decide to remove a building, or if a building collapses because of poor maintenance, you've got to have a demolition office to remove it. Now, a fun one that is available at this level, which I haven't mentioned previously, is you can make explosives. But bear in mind, when you're playing at this level, all you're doing is making explosives for export. But one tip I will give you is, you come to prices and come to here. What you'll see is that you can make if you can gather the resources together, you can actually make quite a nifty profit from making explosives. But you can see here, to make explosives, you need chemicals, gravel, and wood. And I really want to draw your attention to gravel and wood, because this isn't an example alongside the chemical plant where gravel has a role outside of construction. And it's also worth pointing out that wood, and if you're not using mods, I want to emphasize that these are the two industries where you will actually need wood. That will be more relevant when we get to the final section of the video. So going back to the construction industry now, I'm going to start with gravel because it's probably the easiest one, because it will basically, the way to get gravel is you've got to quarry gravel on these quarries. And now, similar to farms, you'll see in here it says maximum number of workers. Now you can send workers to quarries, but these are both automated. The difference between the two is you get a big one. If I come up to here, in fact, I've already placed big ones up over here, haven't I? So if we come up to here, and we got two big ones here. Now the nice one about these large gravel quarries is they have a conveyor connector and two mechanisms, and then the other one is a small one which only has a single excavator in it and no exterior connection. So your preference when you're considering sites for building your gravel is how many of these big ones you can use, because then you can get large quantities of gravel. So the next one I want to talk about is the brick factory. The reason that is that because the brick factory to make bricks only needs coal. Now there is a certain degree of flexibility with respect to the placement of this construction industry. Of course, the obvious point is to put the brick factory near a coal mine, but there can be cases where you may want to have a brick factory near where your construction site is, or alternatively near a construction resources distribution office. Now I'm not going to go there in this video, but I will be talking about it in the next video, because a key part of your construction industry is the supporting logistics. But that is a whole subject in itself, which I don't want to get into in this video. So back to here. Now, of course, I've already mentioned the prefab panels factory. And of course, we've now got the concrete plant here and the asphalt plant. Now, the concrete plant just needs gravel, but you can see it also needs cement. There's that good old gravel there. It actually needs a lot of gravel. So you do need to connect your concrete plant to a supply of gravel. That also applies to asphalt. You can see here that to make 20 tons or 145 tons of asphalt, you need 125 tons of gravel and 20 tons of bitumen. Now, of course, bitumen is the output from your oil refinery. Now, intuitively, you think, wow, I've got to put the bitumen next to my oil refinery. But as I've previously mentioned, the asphalt plant moves forward. Now, this is where there's an advantage to the supply on demand model. What you do is effectively create 10 tons of asphalt to put into a truck, and the truck will wait while it's being produced. That means that you can supply the gravel and bitumen as part of a logistics system, or what you can do is just attach the asphalt plant to wherever you're going to be producing the gravel, which was up over here. So that is another key part in the way that you'd actually decide what you want to do. It's also worth noting that if you've got water enabled, your concrete plant will need water as well. So that covers the concrete and asphalt plant. Now, as I mentioned here, that to be able to make prefabs, you actually need cement, but also in order to make the concrete, you need cement. This is where you get one industry that kind of sits slightly out on its own, which is the cement plant. And the cement plant, as you can see there, it needs 22 tons of coal, again, good old coal, and 210 tons of gravel to make 81 tons of cement. Now, as far as I know, cement has no other role in the game beyond construction. I can't think of any industry where cement is actually needed. So what this means is that cement plants are very much integral to your construction industry center, which will probably include the ability to make concrete and also the prefab panels, because of course your prefab panels also need cement. And also, as a little bit of an aside, is that of all the different ones, if I come to the economy and show you here and we go back to cement, you can make a fairly modest profit from cement by just exporting the surplus, because to be honest, the cement factory can be quite efficient in producing it as long as you can get a nice steady supply of coal in. So hopefully what I've just gone through makes sense. And what I want to do is give a quick recap now to try and pull all the threads together. Now, I've already alluded to that I've actually put a gravel in here, and in the previous part I said this is where my construction industries are going to be. And what we're going to build here in the next part is the ability to produce gravel, and more importantly, we're going to put in a asphalt factory, a concrete factory, and also the cement plant. And then we're going to deal with the logistics of bringing in the coal. And to be honest, this is a part of the decision process, because if we're going to bring the coal in for a cement plant, bearing in mind that at the moment we don't have a coal mine, therefore we're going to have to import the coal from the border. And I've already kind of set a provisional route up there. That then kind of makes a case to put the brick factory in the same area, so that the brick factory can feed off the same coal supply as the prefab as the cement plant. And this is part of the where situation, is that understanding where you actually want stuff, and that now feeds into a more detailed kind of overview of the where, that you can build these big centralized production plants, but you do need to support it with rail, because what you're going to need to do is ship things like prefabs and the bricks out across the map to what you'd call logistics centres, which will then support local construction offices placed across the map. And all that does then is leave the problem of how do you support concrete and asphalt. And the way there's kind of two ways you can do it. One is, I've already alluded to with the construction office, is you can use helicopter construction offices. And the way it works is that you can attach helicopters to concrete plants and asphalt plants, and then what the helicopters will do is distribute the asphalt and the concrete all across the map. And that's something I will be touching in the next part. The alternative is that because the asphalt plant needs bitumen, you basically, what you do is as you move across the map, you create a logistics center where you bring in the necessary resources by train. And then what you do then is build an asphalt plant and a concrete plant near the logistics center so they can get the resources they need to build. And that kind of leads into the fact that one of the most commonest resources on the map is sources of gravel. So you can make a case to set up independent gravel production areas as you spread across the map. Maybe not on the same scale as you would do with, say, for example, this production area here. And that's where this small little building comes into, because one of these can produce enough gravel to support a modest construction industry and the cement plant. To wind this section up, what I'm going to do now is talk about the role of maintenance in how it affects your construction industries. And probably the best way to explain it is by actually loading one of my games where I have maintenance enabled. Now, if you're not interested in that, feel free to jump to the next timestamp for the last section. So what I'm going to do now is just quit out of this game and load a game with maintenance enabled. Okay, welcome back. This is my unification series. It's on realistic mode, so everything has to be built with all the various mechanics enabled. And before I talk about it, I'll just give you a quick view over the level of complexity that you're going to get. And what I've got here is a single town with a population of 12,600. A lot of the buildings down here are related to waste recycling. So this gives you an idea of the complexity you've got to build up here. This area may look a little bit familiar because what we got here is similar to what we've done in the our current new player series, in the sense that we got our silo here. We've got our alcohol factory, food factory, clothing factory, and our fabric factory. This is a good example of the fact that we've got a population of 12,000. At the moment, we are still able to run with just a single clothing factory. Now, the other thing I want to show you before we get going is, in the context of this video, up here, I've got my construction industry. You can see it's quite extensive. And as I was just been talking about, is up here we've got a single gravel output. You can see it's up and running and working now. And you can see what we got in here is 2 excavators digging out the quarried stone, feeding it into an aggregate store. Don't worry too much about trying to catch the detail on this, because I'll be going through this in the next part. That gravel is then that quarried stone is then turned into gravel. I will draw your attention to this building next to it. This is to do with the waste mechanic, and what you every virtually all industrial buildings and need to be connected to these in order to be able to manage the waste. And then what we got is down into this area here, which is what I've just been talking about. We've got our asphalt plant tucked in here, concrete plant next to it. This is hooked to a cement silo, and you can see that the cement is really coming out of this cement plant here, which is actually connected through to a coal mine here. And having the coal and a gravel source close by made this a natural choice as a construction site. You can see it's also got a power plant in here as well, which is providing coal. And I took advantage of that by putting the brick factory up here, which is another example of how you put things together. And then of course what we got here turning out is a prefab factory here. And I've never got round to building all this, but you can see what we got here is a aggregate export yard, which I haven't even got round to building yet. We've got another link in here which will allow me to export the actual prefabs around. Now, one thing that I was considering is to actually move the bricks from here once the rail lines have been built, and actually making up more capacity in here and using this to move both bricks and prefabs around the map. But one thing I will show you here is the fact that the rail line is pretty still in the process of being built. This is one of the consequences of realistic mode, because you start with less cash. Also, it takes a lot of resources. The railway often lags far behind what's going on here. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is just take you to this construction office here. And the first thing I want to show you is the fact that this construction office has got auto search on. And what you see below is two additional entries, which is reconstruction and machine replacement. And then there's a percentage next to this, which shows when a building is due to be reconstructed or rebuilt. And if you click on here, I don't know, and what you see here, I'll just pause the game and bring it in the center. What you see here is this log distribution office, and what you see next to it is a symbol that says reconstruction in progress. Now, this building here, which if we kind of click to, comes to, so what we got here is a distribution office. Now, if you click on here, what you'll see if you come down the bottom is, I'm going to rush through this, don't worry about trying to take in the detail. If I click on here, it will tell you the resources that are needed to repair this. And you can see that in order to repair this distribution office, I need 5 tons of gravel, 6 tons of boards. Now, the other thing I'm going to show you is if I come in and put the filter on, I'm just going to see, come up here, and what you got now is the thing that says show wear and tear. This appears when you enable it. And what you can do is, I'll do it for the whole map. Now, what you see here is a lot of red. Now, the reason the red is on here is the fact that if I come over to here, this is a customs post. Now, the custom post doesn't have problems, but the buildings around it, you can see one building here is already collapsed and it's got waste because this is what happens with maintenance. If you don't maintain buildings, they'll collapse. This one's on the verge of collapse. If I click on this one, you can see that to reconstruct this, we're now on the point of having to rebuild it. And this is how maintenance works, is that more damage the building gets, the more resources are needed to actually repair it. And that's also, if I come in and show you the railway gate, this railway gate's on 58%. So this needs and you also got to remember the amount of resources needed to repair a building relate to the size of the building as well. Now, the default is 50%. So if we go to this building here, this is a road crew. And again, what you'll see here, no, go down. What you see here, this building needs steel, boards and bricks. Now, the second part of maintenance is in your industrial buildings. And what you see here is down here, you'll see, I'm aware the print's very small, guys, but what you'll see here, it says wear and tear on machines. Now, these buttons will tell you what's needed to repair the machines. What you'll see here, apologies for the small print, it says wear and tear on machines. Now if I come up here, you can get the game to manually replace machines or even repair buildings, but there is a minimum. But what you see here is that to repair the machines needs both mechanical components, electro components and steel. Now one thing you do need to be aware of when you're running maintenance, if I click this, what will happen is when you repair machines, your factory will stop running until that repair is done. So that's the background of maintenance. And basically what I'm trying to give you guys an idea of is that every town is going to need a construction office with access to all the necessary building resources to be able to maintain your buildings. So, and of course, if you come out here, this is on 2000. This is on where is it? Come here. 3000. You can see here I've got full coverage in this area. So when you're planning your construction industry and also where your construction industries are going to get resources from, and you need to consider the ongoing maintenance costs when you are going to have maintenance enabled. And as a quick aside, guys, I know it's got nothing to do with what we're doing, is this is the vehicle maintenance repair building. So every vehicle that needs to be repaired, you can see, and this is another feature of the logistics, but you can see what the vehicle repairs actually follow the type of materials that you need to build a vehicle. So vehicle repair doesn't need the same level of construction supplies as building repair would be. Hopefully this gives you an idea that when you go to maintenance, your choice of location for the production and supply of building resources changes quite dramatically. Of course, what you could do if you're close to the border and it's a small town, you just import from the border. But of course, if you've got a big town like this with a regular maintenance program, you're going to need either access to a construction area like this, or more importantly, a logistics center where those resources are being brought in by train. And this is a bit of a warning, guys. On the surface, maintenance looks very simple. The real problem is getting in the mech components and the electrical components, because setting up construction of electrical components, it can be very expensive, but at the same time building a central area to supply electrical components all across the map to support maintenance is a little bit of a nightmare. Anyway, what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm just going to quit out of here and reload the original game, then we'll go to the last section in this video, and I'll see you once we get there. Okay, welcome back. Now, the special case that I was alluding to at the beginning, and that is the production of boards. It's actually listed in this area. And to produce boards, what you actually need is a wood cutting post and a sawmill. Now, the reason I'm saying it as a special case is that there's kind of two reasons why you'd have a wood cutting post. As I alluded to, that you're going to need wood in order to be able to support your chemical industry, but not large quantities. Also, you only need relatively small amounts of lumber or wood. What does the sawmill produce? I always get them mixed up. Boards, sorry. But you only need relatively small amounts of boards to be able to support your construction industry. But at the same time, as I've just been showing in the where we went to my realistic game, is that when you're playing with maintenance, you do need that supply of an industry. Now, you could ship boards all across the map with trains, but if I show you the cost of boards, come to the economy, and we come to boards, you can see that to buy them, it's 10.36 rubles per ton, and you can sell them for 9.37. So my personal approach, now so I emphasize this is my personal approach, is what I do is, when I've got a major town like this, I actually set up a local wood production or board cutting factory. Now, and what I like to try and do, in fact, I'm just going to do this just to keep it simple, is we're going to bring you out, and we're just going to accept. I mean, it's only an asphalt footpath. Now, what I try to do is put the your wood production within walking distance of the residential area, so that you don't have to invest in buses and all sorts of other stuff. And the way you can do it is, now The actual wood cutting post produces no pollution. So what you can do is, well, you don't need to put it right on the doorstep. In fact, I could probably put it just in about there. And you don't need a vast amount of workforce as well. So we've got a couple of factory. Actually, if I put it there, we just kind of curve this away. Now, I don't know if you noticed that, but there is a range. Now, if you want to go really overboard with wood, you need a full range. But you can see here that most of the range will go over the town here. But to be honest, when this roll, I don't really worry too much about what's going on. Now, what you do need next is a storage link. And again, I don't go over the top with this. Where's the open hole? Yeah, I mean, you could get away with, I think a small one should do. And what I want to do is, I put you there. Actually, if I put you about there, keep it short. Actually, don't want it really to go onto that road there. What I'm trying to do is keep everything pretty tight. Now, the next thing I want to put in is the actual sawmill. The sawmill does produce a little bit of pollution, but it's 1.2 tons per year. And to be honest, there's a good chance this sawmill won't actually be running basis. And what I'm going to do is, again, I'm just going to tuck you in really tight here, like this. And hopefully build this in there. Let's accept that. And what I want to do is get the sawmill within walking distance. It just gets to that building there. Yeah, I mean, it only needs a workforce of 20, and to be honest, you can reduce it down to 10. And what you could also do is put another footpath into here. And the other thing, what you want to do is put in come in here, just drop off at a road cargo station. I must admit, I'm actually sorry, apologies, guys. What we're going to do is put in a road cargo station, probably put it like that. I say we're not interested too much in maxing things. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to build this just as a demonstration. And we're just going to build this through. So we've now got a sawmill here. Now, of course, this is actually out of range of the workforce, but eventually when this is built, we'll be able to get some workforce into here. And just to double check, yep, could probably, just to make this a little bit better, could probably take an asphalt plant up to about, and what we can do is just put another asphalt path to about there, like that. Just let that build. What that should do is possibly bring this a little bit more into range. Guys are coming out here already. Obviously they must be in range of something else. And of course, to set this up, the first thing we need to do is set the limit. And what I'm going to do is we're going to have I think it's go actually clear all the entries. What we want is 50. Actually, we go 60. And what that will mean is that we will get the logs in here. Now, to get this working, we'll leave this on auto purchase. What you need to do is buy some trucks to be able to get this going. Don't have much in the way of trucks, do we? So we're going to have to get some cheap ones. Is there any better? No, nothing. Okay. So what we'll have to do is start with 2 of them. Now, of course, there's not that much in the range of here. And if you click on here, it actually tells you that the amount of wood in the forest is 253 tons. So what we're going to have to do is put some more trees down. And what you do is put down pines. Press Control to get that. What we'll do is just shove all the loads and loads of trees here, and you can kind of go in here because we're not going to build anything in this area. And what you'll see is, and probably the other thing they haven't got is power. Right, I'm just going to very quickly put in a power supply. What we can do is put in small power supply here. Check this up with mud. And I think what I'll probably do is, this is bad design, guys. I want to emphasize this. We can pick up from here and run single power line to there. Just let that build. What that will do is bring power into here. You see straight away, as soon as we got power, these guys will go out and start cutting trees down. Although I'm not exactly too sure why they'd be cutting down these trees. They're not very big. Now the way it works is that your actual workforce in here actually cut down the trees, and then what they do is they leave piles scattered around the map like this. You can see them now, and then the trucks go out and collect them, and then they will go into here, and then what you will get is these guys will start. And of course what happens is that to begin with, these will basically, what will happen is that these will grab all the wood that's coming in from here and turn it into boards. And if we put a road connection, kind of run it this way, probably run you just down to there, build that in. Of course what that means now is that we can now take this construction industry, put you on to boards. I don't think, I can put these guys onto it as well, like this. And what that means is that, so that is probably the first step in our pathway towards self-sufficiency with respect to the production of boards. And you can see how quickly I put that together, and this can quite happily trundle along in its own time, and eventually what will happen is this will slowly fill up. In fact, I think I'm going to reduce that down to about 115 tons of boards. But eventually what will happen is this will have a pile of boards into here, and then you will get logs piling up into here. And the reason for getting excess wood in here is the fact that we do need to make chemicals, and we can now start to think about making fossil fuels using the wood from this part here to actually make chemicals. But you can see this is a very low investment, simple way of doing things. And as a final point, if you're playing in with maintenance enabled, having one of this kind of set up close to your construction office just saves a lot of headache with respect to logistics, because trying to move boards around to keep a sufficient quantity around to be able for your maintenance is just not worth the effort. And as you can see, and of course what you can do is just reduce the amount of staff down. You know, you can put it kind of minimal staff in here because you don't really need it. So you're talking about employing about 20 or 30 members of staff to get this up and running, and quite happily we'll keep chugging on. And one thing I will point out is if you go into research, come down here, there is a tech which is worth researching. It's this one here called Forest Study and Wood Cutting Planting Policy, because if you haven't got that, it means every so often you're going to have to come and refresh the trees. But once you've got that, this just becomes a constantly self-sustaining industry. Anyway, guys, I've probably laboured that point far too much, but so this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting. And until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.